Hey Drew, let me tell you a little bit about myself.
Not if you want me to like you.
You're listening to State of Arrest with South Florida criminal defense attorneys William R. Moore and Drew Atria. Today, getting your jurors to talk, but let the individual ones talk about themselves. It'll help you identify. Drew, what do you got for me today?
How to get anyone to like you instantly?
Oh, well, that comes naturally to me. Just kidding. Tell me what you got. You have some
I do.
nonverbal cues you want to talk about today?
We'll talk about them. The trick on this is if you want people to like you, make them feel good about themselves.
And we can make them feel good about themselves by allowing them to talk about themselves and using empathy, relating, right? I know how you feel.
True. And the reason this is difficult to do, Ryan, is because people generally are so focused on themselves that they don't focus on the other. When if we want something, if we have something we want or we need from someone, all we have to do is make them the focus. Keep the focus on them, and they'll give us and do everything we want in any way if they like us.
Now, in relating to jurors, and this sort of is status quo when picking a jury, and I bring everything back to the criminal trial and how they relate, how your research relates to the practice of criminal defense in the trial setting. But we're restricted from really being able to empathize with potential jurors by saying, I know how you feel, that just happened to me, or something similar just happened to me, right? If a juror says, well, I was a victim of a crime, we can't say, as a criminal defense attorney during the voir dire stage, well, I know how you feel, I was the victim of a crime once. That would be shot down immediately. But these are concepts in general that you have, because you're not supposed to bring it back to you, are you? You're supposed to keep the focus on the individual you're talking to if you want them to feel good about themselves. Or am I mistaken?
That's true. We when talking to them, instead of making the focus on us, we keep it on them. We show interest in what they say. We show appreciation for what they say, and simply by showing interest in what they say is very, very important. Jurors or just people on the road, anywhere you meet them. If we want something, all we have to do is keep the focus on them and make them feel good about themselves. I'll give you a good example. And then Benjamin Franklin talked about this. If I ask you for a favor, to do me a favor, okay, you'll feel better about yourself for doing the favor, which really sounds counterintuitive.
It does sound counterintuitive, but it's true.
You think I would like you more because you did me a favor, but it works just in the opposite way. When we do a favor for someone, we feel good about ourselves. I did a favor for someone this morning, and on the way to work, I felt incredibly good and happy that I was able to do this for the person.
Yeah, it's interesting research, and I think the small favors, at least, if you're in a restaurant or establishment, and it's happened to all of us, somebody asks, hey, is this chair taken? We'd like to take it over our table. We have an extra party, no seat. You let them have it. You sort of feel a connection with that person. You like them because there's been that connection. Never met them. You did them a favor by giving them a chair from your table. A small favor.
Okay.
Right?
Right.
I mean, asking somebody to lend you a bunch of money may not garner the same amount of good feeling that they have towards you, and may feel cautious you're never going to pay them back. But it's a phenomenon that is counterintuitive, but absolutely true. What about nonverbal communication with regard
very
to
important.
identifying?
You were saying how to do this. It can be generally nonverbal. One of the techniques that the FBI analyst use or talks about is, since our brains are hardwired to continually scan for friend or foe, way back when the cavemen were coming out of a cave wondering, am I got a fight or flight? Am I safe here? We look for people who don't pose threat cues. They pose or show us friend cues. What's a cue? In other words, something you see that helps you understand who they are. There's three primary friend cues he talks about.
When you say cue, I think about the cues that officers look for in DUIs. and
Either way,
whatnot.
any tips?
Slurred
When you-
speech,
From a
bloodshot
distance,
eyes.
from a distance, we have, as we're approaching someone, if we notice someone raise their eyebrows while approaching us, they're signaling to us that they're a friend and they like us.
So our primitive subconscious is wired towards seeing that as being non-threatening.
Without
Okay.
even being conscious, right? It's
Got it.
subconscious. And because we're not a threat, we're trying to in some way indicate to that person without language, and we may not even be conscious of it.
What else?
You're walking down
Eyebrow-
the street and you see somebody you know and you give them a head nod like this. It's the same thing. It's like, hey, how are you?
Got it.
I like you.
Got
You
it.
feel it. It's not verbal. And since they see it at a distance, right away we feel safe. This is what we call a friend instead of a foe, and we reciprocate. And sometimes we give the eyebrow flash back.
Kind of like a projectile nonverbal cue. What else? There's three of them, aren't
tilting
there?
your head. They call them head tilts.
Kind of like what I see in my dog when I make a high-pitched sound just to get him to make that cute head tilt.
Yeah, that's indicating what, because why? What is it doing? We don't probably know this, but it's exposing the carotid arteries on either side of our head, which if they were disrupted or restricted the blood going to the brain, we'd be dead in minutes. So by tilting our head, we're showing that we're a friend. It seems a little far-fetched, but the third one and the simplest one is smiling. This sends the message, I like you. We don't smile at people that we don't like. And it also usually comes back. It's pretty hard to resist a smile by not smiling back.
Now, bringing this back to the voir dire phase, and criminal defense attorney picking a jury as they're walking in or sitting there, certainly I can't raise my eyebrows, tilt my head, and smile at all of them. I mean, that would look ridiculous. But I think that where that would come into play, at least in terms of defending an accused during the adjudicatory hearing, would be the cues you're getting from the jurors and learning about them and who they don't feel threatened by, maybe identifying with, and as we've spoken in the past, who they're seeing as the person in control of the courtroom, which may help you curb the way that you're handling the case.
And the person they trust.
And the person that they trust. And you want to garner the jurors' trust
First.
In fact, Gerry Spence has done a lot of talking about, or speaking about how being real and being caring is so important, because those are the types of jurors you want to ultimately sit.
Gerry Spence starts with, I'm looking for people who will find my defendant, my client, not guilty.
Right, and in Broward County, when you're defending a criminal case, I think the judges may try to restrict that. I know Gerry Spence can probably get away with, for lack of a better term, murder. But I think that in terms of being real and caring, he said, is you can't expect your jurors to be real and caring unless if you yourself have shown that. And I'm always cautious when we talk about things such as mirroring or nonverbal cues or letting jurors talk about themselves rather than bringing it back to yourself, that you got to be careful. It's an informed society today, information age. You don't want to look disingenuous. You don't want to look like you're trying to manipulate or ultimately betray potential jurors. You want to put that on law enforcement. You want to put that on the prosecutors with their canned voir dire. You want to put that on officers who have framed their police reports and their testimony in a way that convicts the client. Prosecutors want to further their career by getting convictions. Law enforcement officers want to further their career by getting convictions. You see this, I mentioned DUIs before. DUIs that involve cues, slurred speech, swaying, and failure to obey commands. But the video shows one of those things missing. The juror feels betrayed. So wouldn't you agree that in knowing this stuff, you want to use it really to make yourself seem less threatening and more likable, but not to the point of manipulating? What is it that Churchill said about flattery?
In the beginning, it sounds false. In the middle, it sounds real.
Nothing truer, right? What happens if, what if when we first met, I walked in and I said, wow, this is a cool office. Now that's an exception because that's exactly how we met a couple decades ago, is it not? Right? That was flattery. But if you walked up to somebody if you just met somebody for the first time, flattering them can be almost a red flag that you got to watch out for somebody, right?
It could put you off.
Could put you off.
Suspicious.
I agree with Churchill on that.
What we're talking about.
Because you did have a cool office.
Yeah, we're just trying to get people to like us. And the way that we do that is keep the focus on them and make them the center of attention.
Right. What about empathetic statements that are made?
Well, that keeps the focus on the person if you know how to do it and you do it right. In other words, if you're genuinely concerned about someone or interested in them, you're going to talk to them about themselves. You're going to ask them about themselves. You're going to find interest in what they say because you're interested in them and in what they say. So the basic formula that this gentleman from the FBI talks about would be to say, in response to someone saying, I'm really having a hard day, you put it right back to them. So you are having a hard day means, tell me about that. And then they tell you why it's so hard. So you are having a hard day because of this. So you this. So you that.
And don't eclipse them.
No, of course not.
Don't say, I had a hard day yesterday, because
it's not about you.
It's not about me, and they may be looking at you like you have no idea how I
You
feel.
want them to like you, like them.
Got it.
And so that's one thing. And did we talk about the favors, or did we start with that?
Yeah. Doing somebody a favor will make the favor giver like the person, which is counterintuitive, but is actually the case.
Right. And see, the reason this works so well too, when I say works, it's not in any way a manipulation. The reason it's so effective is this. It's not about me, it's about you. Most people are talking about themselves. They keep the focus on themselves. They don't let the other person in. The other person wants to be in. They want to be accepted, admired, loved, and so forth. When they don't see it, they don't feel it, they don't like it, and they don't like us. Now, so since we want them to feel good, keep the focus on them. Remember what Maya Angelou said. People may not remember exactly what you did or what you said, but they'll never forget how you made them feel.
True, thanks. Thanks for your time and your insight. You've been listening to State of Arrest with South Florida criminal defense attorneys William R. Moore and Drew Atria. Be sure to catch us next week for more trial tactics and just understanding how better to influence, be real, and be empathetic to people in general. Thanks again.